to be solved. Today's discussion will include the implementation status of the CARICOM Youth Development Action Plan and the formulation of salient recommendations for action by the heads of government. And we are pleased to welcome each and every one of you. We'll go right to hearing the CARICOM song.
I don't know if it's just me, but I'm not hearing anything.
We are experiencing some technical difficulties.
Is it at the school or something?
Dwayne, I'm sorry, your mic is muted, please.
Oh, sorry. I was saying that we are experiencing some technical difficulties with the CARICOM song. So what we'll do, we'll move straight into having some opening remarks by Dr. Slater, Assistant Secretary General.
I think that sorry, that might error that is supposed to be Miss Michelle Small Buckley. That was changed. Sorry about that.
We welcome the change.
Thank you, Dr. Slater.
The youth.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are. I was saying we are changing in deference to the youth.
Okay, if you say so. Albert Einstein said, the student is not a container you have to fill, but a torch you have to light up. I acknowledge the presence of His Excellency President Santoki, President of Suriname, Deputy Secretary General, Dr. Armstrong Alex, the Assistant Secretary General, Human and Social Development, Dr. Douglas Slater, we just heard him, Director, Human Development, Mrs. Helen Royer, Program Manager, Culture and Community Development, Dr. Hilary Brown, and our partners, UNICEF, UNESCO, PAHO, Commonwealth Secretariat, and the British High Commission, and other distinguished guests. But most of all, this afternoon, our youth. Good afternoon to you all. As we examine the currency and the relevance of the CARICOM Youth Development Action Plan, it was realized that it was time for us to start to have a new beginning, a time to change the rhetoric to action by first giving voice to our youth. Of course, planting a seed without ensuring the right soil and providing the requisite substance for growth will undoubtedly lead to stagnation. It is the Secretariat's vision for a unified and inclusive community. And as we recognize the role of youth in the development of our region, the onus is on us to provide the place and the opportunity for their empowerment and participation. Also, it is paramount at this time in our existence that we align our actions with the changes naturally occurring in our environment and more so in the world. But as we look a little bit closer, more in our region and the nations. This requires inclusivity of experienced minds, learned minds, but most importantly, new minds. Albert Einstein said, "We can't solve our problems with the same thinking we used to create them." As I look out there on you, the youth, I see only intelligence, innovativeness, creativity, and agile minds, ready to work on building the region you want to live in, the region in which you would like to exude your talents and competencies. But undoubtedly, you would like to fashion the future you truly want and deserve. This forum was designed to lay the foundation to begin to build the walls that will fortify a future of promise, resilience, and stamina. This is indeed much for us to do. There is indeed much for us to do after this forum, as this is the initiation of the process of change. Today, you have the direct opportunity to converse with the lead head of youth development across the region, the soon-to-be chair of the Conference of Heads of Government, none other than His Excellency Santoki. So I encourage you to be bold, to be wise, and courageous in advocating your needs and making the recommendations you see fit for the region you want. Oprah Winfrey says, "You define your life. Don't let others write your script." I open this forum today providing you with the latitude to begin the process of determining your outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And it goes without saying, what we sow is what we reap. And this is the first step of sowing good seeds as we have our discussions and initiation to this project. We'll now dive right into an address by Deputy Secretary General, Dr. Armstrong Alexis.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. His Excellency, the President of Suriname and quasi-government cabinet head on youth affairs, Chanjekotad Chan Santoki, Dr. Douglas Slater, the Assistant Secretary General for Human and Social Development, Ms. Helen Royer, the Director for Human and Social Development Directorate at the CARICOM Secretariat, Dr. Hilary Brown, Program Manager for Culture and Community Development, partners, UNICEF, UNESCO, PAHO, the Commonwealth Secretariat, the British High Commission, our CARICOM Youth Ambassadors, the Dean and other members, and representatives of the Caribbean Regional Youth Council, ladies and gentlemen. It brings me great pleasure to address the region's youth this afternoon at this, the inaugural CARICOM Youth Forum, a critical event for young persons across the region to examine current youth development needs. I want to commend the CARICOM Youth Ambassadors in collaboration with our partners, the University of the West Indies students today, alumni tomorrow, that is UISTAT, and the Caribbean Regional Youth Council for the execution of this event, which provides a platform for young people to formulate innovative strategies for implementing the CARICOM youth development goals in the respective member states of CARICOM. Ladies and gentlemen, I am well aware that this forum, being the first of its kind, takes place just days before the 43rd meeting of the CARICOM Heads of Government in Paramaribo, Suriname. I'm also grateful that His Excellency, the President of Suriname, has made himself available for engaging our young people in today's forum. The CARICOM Heads of Government recognize that critical role that youth have to play in regional development. Their innovation, creativity, and unique perspective all make them an invaluable asset to sustainable development in our region. Colleagues, as we seek to move forward with the COVID-19 pandemic, The CARICOM Secretariat will continue to support regional priorities such as education, health, and economic empowerment that directly impact our region's youth. The Secretariat will help to secure a sustainable future for youth by providing increasing opportunities for meaningful engagement of young people in the affairs of the community. The CARICOM Youth Development Action Plan was developed as a result of consultations with youth development stakeholders and supported 6 CARICOM youth development goals. However, we are aware that there are new and emerging issues not formally contemplated that are now affecting the livelihoods and well-being of youth. For example, climate change and environment sustainability, ICT, gender, agriculture, and citizen security. The CARICOM Secretariat will ensure that the CYDAP is updated and further complemented by supporting mechanisms at the regional and the national levels for youth participation and empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, the CYDAP is critical to ministries responsible for youth development and the relevant stakeholders throughout the region. It guides them in defining priority areas and developing programs and activities for the region's youth. The CARICOM Secretariat remains committed to ensuring that positive and enabling environments for youth empowerment are created and sustained to encourage youth to achieve positive life outcomes. This forum that we are having today affords the opportunity to share your views and recommendations on possible strategies to bolster the region's effort in building an enabling environment for you, the young people. I am aware that a team of young people have committed to collating the recommendations in the form of a policy brief, which the Dean of the CARICOM Youth Ambassadors program will present at the upcoming Heads of Government meeting. And I therefore take the opportunity to thank those of you who will participate in this activity and to thank the Dean in advance for a presentation that I am sure the heads will be looking forward to. This action is indicative of the importance that we place on youth participation in the affairs of the community. We are ready to listen and commit to an improved youth development agenda throughout CARICOM. The CARICOM Secretariat reaffirms its commitment to youth development, and I applaud your efforts and those of your valued stakeholders and partners as we recognize the collaboration, cooperation, and commitment are required to achieve the outcome of a healthy and resilient youth population across the Caribbean. I thank you and I look forward to today's deliberation.
Thank you, Dr. Alexis. As we continue to know about the seeds we are indeed sowing, we'll now have an overview of the CARICOM Youth Development Framework, and that will be presented by Dr. Hilary Brown, Program Manager of Culture and Community Development. I'm so excited about this forum that I forgot to introduce myself. CARICOM Youth Ambassador for St. Kitts and Nevis. So we're going to have the overview of the CARICOM Youth Development Framework. Dr.
Thank
Brown.
you very much. Thank you. Are you hearing me? Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. I would like to acknowledge President Santoki, Dr. Armstrong Alexis, our Deputy Secretary General, Dr. Douglas Slater, our ASG, Mrs. Helen Royer, Director of Human and Social Development, Ms. Michelle Small-Barkley, our DPM for Youth, all of our partners, but especially our young people. It really is a pleasure for me today and almost a deja vu to join this forum and to help with part of the theme of the forum, which is looking back, looking in, and looking beyond the declaration of Paramaribo on the future of youth in the Caribbean community. And so what I would like to do today, and Antoinette, could you please start the slideshow so that it is bigger? Thank you. What I would like to do is focus our attention on some of the important work, the important steps, the important achievements that we have taken as a community and as a youth community to ensure that as we move forward, we are building on the important work that we have done already. And so what I'll be focusing on is the Declaration of Paramaribo, but also the CARICOM Youth Development Action Plan, the Cdap, and also looking at the report of the CARICOM Commission on Youth Development that preceded it. So Antoinette, you're having some difficulty starting the slideshow?
Yes, Dr. Brown, I'm having, 1 second, let me see if I could sort it out. 1 second.
Okay, well, are you able to change the slides in the current frame, or it's not changing at all?
It's not changing.
Okay.
1 moment, please. I'll send it to Michelle and she will be able to do it for me.
Okay, thank you. All right, so a little background. The first part of the background that I wanted to focus on was the CARICOM Commission on Youth Development, because this really was a watershed moment in youth development for the region. And the CARICOM Youth Commission, actually, I have to say, it's a pleasure to say that Dr. Armstrong Alexis was a member of that commission that did that groundbreaking work, and which was made up of 8 youth leaders and 7 technocrats. And it was co-chaired by a young person and a senior youth. And the young person who co-chaired that commission was Ildis Pollack Beagley from Suriname. And many of you, well, those of you in Suriname would know that she went on to serve as foreign minister at some point in the political landscape. And it was also co-chaired by Professor Barry Shivans, a university professor of blessed memory. So I think already you can see that the CARICOM Youth Commission was groundbreaking, both in its structure, having a youth-adult partnership in its structure, and then the important work that was done by the commission. And I think what was critical is that, and something that I think we need to take note of and take forward, is that the Youth Commission was critical to changing the mindset, changing the understanding about youth. They had some very strong key messages, and those messages included: youth are a significant asset to the community. Okay, let's see if we're able to move forward with the presentation. Okay, wonderful. Progress. Thank you, Michelle. So you could go back. Could you go to the previous slide, please? Okay. So, all right, next slide. So if there are any young people who have never seen the document, the report of the CARICOM Commission on Youth Development called Eye on the Future, Investing in Youth Now for Tomorrow's Community, this is the cover page of that document. Next slide. Okay, and so the mandate given to the CARICOM Youth Commission in 2006 by our heads of government, and which was operationalized from 2007 to 2010, was to undertake a full-scale analysis of the challenges and opportunities for youth in the CSME and to make recommendations to improve their well-being and empowerment. Next slide, please. So there was a recognition that youth are critical to the effective implementation of the CSME and the heads wanted to have a full investigation of to what extent young people were engaged and benefiting from this critical pillar of our regional integration movement. And the Youth Commission's work was based on comprehensive research. And I've just highlighted it there because I think we always need to remember the work that went in. Consultations with youth aged 10 to 29 in and out of school, a very comprehensive literature review of all of the work done on youth up to that point. Research in 10 member states on youth governance structures. That is our national youth councils, our various ambassador programs and others to see how are they functioning, how are they serving youth. In 12 member states, we did research on youth visions and aspirations. In 3 member states, research on youth risk and vulnerability. There was an online survey on CARICOM and the CSME. What's the level of awareness? How much do young people know about the CSME and CARICOM? We did a special study on Haiti and then had support from the World Bank to do a particular analysis, a cost-benefit analysis of investing in youth or non-investment in youth. How can it impact the GDP of our countries if our countries put that sort of investment that we should put? So very comprehensive research done by the CARICOM Commission, and I believe consultations with some 7,000 to 10,000 stakeholders across the region. Next slide, please. And so some of those key messages from our Youth Commission were, one, that youth are an asset, not a problem to be solved. A very key, creative, valuable human resource asset to this region who should not be viewed through a prism of being a problem. That youth should be seen as partners in development and not only as beneficiaries, not just beneficiaries of the CSME, but critical to advancing and to implementing and to ensuring that, that we all benefit from the CSME. That youth should not only be seen as the future, but also as the present. So we have young people who are making contributions in every sphere of life, in every discipline, in every profession. And so we tend to say youth are the future, but we need to recognize their contribution now in the present and to enable them to continue to contribute to the development of the region. And then the other very strong key message was, if we don't invest in youth, we will not have a CSME and we will not have a robust regional integration movement. I think the Commission also highlighted that the majority of young people transition successfully from youth to adulthood. It really is a minority, an important minority that needs to be addressed, but to recognize the great value of young people. Next slide, please. The next slide. So the next slide deals with some of the key recommendations. And essentially our commission said we need to understand young people, understand the transitional phase that they're in, recognize their contribution nationally and regionally, invest in our young people and ensure that we invest at critical stages of their development. So that is early childhood, adolescence, when they're ready to enter the workforce, and to structure that along the life cycle approach. To promote participation and partnership with young people, and to strengthen the protective factors, which are the family, the church, the community, the school, which help to support and shape the development of youth. Next slide. So this report, this seminal groundbreaking report from our Youth Commission was presented to a special summit of heads of government in January 2010 in Suriname. And Suriname continues to lead in this portfolio, President Santoki being our lead head for youth. But over the years, Suriname really has been recognized as being as having best practice in the approach to many aspects of youth development, the kind of support given to CYAs, the kinds of structures that facilitate youth participation, and has been recognized many times by COSAD for that. So we're looking forward to the continued leadership and support of Suriname. Next slide. So the declaration that was adopted by that special summit of heads of government in Suriname in January 2010 endorsed the main recommendations of CCYD, recognized the important role of youth in Caribbean development, and committed to strengthening youth departments, youth governance structures, as well as the CARICOM Secretariat Youth Program to better support the implementation of the many excellent recommendations that came from the CCYD. Next slide, please. And heads also committed to youth mainstreaming across government portfolios, taking a multi-sectoral approach. At the time, we did not have CARICOM Youth Development Goals. So heads committed to the idea of elaborating CARICOM Youth Development Goals, which we then got in the Cdap, and to explore the establishment of a regional mechanism to finance youth development in the region. And again, Suriname took the lead on that by making a donation to establish a youth fund back in 2013, and to also consider a regional youth award to recognize the contributions of outstanding young people in the region. Next slide. So moving quickly to the CARICOM Youth Development Action Plans. So you can see then how they all have influenced each other, the CCYD to the declaration, and then the community elaborated the Cdap. Next slide, please. So in addition to the declaration, other frameworks that helped to shape the Cdap were international ones from the UN, from the Commonwealth, and of course our own regional strategy for youth development, which preceded the Cdap, and the MDGs. Next slide, please. Okay, so our Cdap, following the work of the CARICOM Commission, which targeted youth 10 to 29, the Cdap also covers youth from adolescents to young professionals. Next slide. Okay, so the purpose of the Cdap is to improve the quality and quantity of access and opportunity available to young people across the community. It operationalizes the Declaration of Paramaribo as well as the CARICOM Commission on Youth Development, and is intended to complement the implementation of CSME and support mainstreamed adolescent and youth well-being and empowerment in the community. Next, please. The Cdap Vision is secure, valued, and empowered adolescents and youth realizing their full potential and contributing to a sustainable Caribbean community. And the mission statement to promote through a regional partnership agenda an enabling environment for adolescents and youth well-being and empowerment and participation in national and regional development. Next slide. Our objectives: to create an appropriate institutional framework to facilitate the delivery of an integrated and mainstreamed agenda for adolescent and youth development, to guide effective and efficient delivery of adolescent and youth development policy, programs, and services in our member states based on an evidence-based approach, and to mainstream adolescent and youth development into a multi-sectoral policy and programming arrangements within government institutions. I know quite a bit of a mouthful, but essentially to ensure that youth is an element that is addressed in every portfolio, whether that's in agriculture, in technology, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in medicine, everywhere young people are active across the community, across our countries. Every ministry really should have a component that addresses the development of young people in that sector. Next slide. To foster genuine participation and partnership with young people, to ensure that investments in adolescents and youth are appropriate to the life stages and circumstances, as I spoke to guide the development of a sustained regional research and information and knowledge management agenda, and to foster adolescent and youth awareness and appreciation of Caribbean identity, culture, and citizenship. Next slide, please. Okay, so our CARICOM Youth Development Goals, and again, I want to acknowledge now Ferranta Donghor, a former CARICOM Youth Ambassador from Suriname, whose idea it was that the region, the community should articulate CARICOM Youth Development Goals. And so this became the centerpiece of the Cdap. And again, demonstrating that you partner with young people and you can have game-changing ideas which become part of community practice. So our goals include education and economic empowerment, protection, safety and security, health and well-being, culture, citizenship and identity. And this slide just shows how it is aligned with the Commonwealth PAYE, with the UN's WPAY and other international, the SDGs. Next slide. So those are the first 4 goal areas. And then we have cultural identity and citizenship, policy and institutional framework, leadership, participation, and governance. Then we developed a monitoring and evaluation framework and indicators and the benchmarks for which we would like member states to use to determine the extent to which they're achieving youth development in the region. Next slide. So in summary, why the Cdap is important, it is the regional policy and plan for youth development. And so all our young people should be familiar with it and what's in it. It builds on the CCYD report. It builds on the Declaration of Paramaribo. That's the commitment from heads. It builds on all the incredible research done by our commissioners, consultations with key stakeholders, and most importantly, it's built on that political agreement. Our ministers of youth agreed to the Cdap, and it is built on that Declaration of Paramaribo, which is the commitment from heads of government to which we can hold our heads accountable. Next slide. So this, I'm coming now to the end of the presentation. So we're in the process now of revising the Cdap to use a stronger results-based management approach to the monitoring and evaluation so that we can strengthen that multi-sectoral framework to accurately document, record, and track progress towards our CARICOM Youth Development goals and inform our policy making, and to improve service delivery and program implementation, as well as incorporate areas that were not previously addressed. Environment and climate change is one of the areas that we're focusing on, innovation and technology, and to put more emphasis on areas such as mental health in the health and wellness component. Next slide. So I think that brings me to the end of my presentation. And I think what I would then say is that for us as we go through this forum, and as especially young people, what are your key messages? What are the key messages that you would like to bring to the heads? What are the key statements? What are the issues that you would like President Santoki to champion for you, for us? This is an incredible opportunity to have this dialogue and to see, well, what is the key message? Where are we going forward? So with that, I will stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Brown, for that full and comprehensive overview of the CARICOM Youth Development Framework. And to supplement that, we'll have some youth statements by the Vice Chair of Policy Advocacy for the Caribbean Regional Youth Council, Mr. Shama Wedderburn. Then we'll have the Dean of the CARICOM Youth Ambassador Program from Trinidad and Tobago, Miss Renee Atwell. And yeah, so we'll kick it off with the first youth statement. Shama?
Young people, as we've been hearing, are game changers. And if given the opportunity, they can lead in economic growth and poverty reduction nationally and regionally. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. As we've been hearing from the previous presentation, I just want to remind you just of the impact and where we are. That in 2010, this started from a heads of government meeting when they affirmed the strong belief that the unique perspectives, creativities, the energies, and other assets, I want to hone that asset, not a problem, that young people possess are essential elements to societal change, innovation, and development. We've been hearing already that, therefore, this developed into our 6 priority areas from education, health and well-being, culture, environment, climate change, among others. The CRIC wants to emphasize that these goals remain pertinent, but as we've seen and why we're gathered here today, is that with the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic and other challenges, these challenges and problems have become accentuated and require even further and greater attention by us and all stakeholders today. These challenges require us to rethink and strengthen our regional policies, all our systems, our coordinations, and ensure that our mechanisms to support every single member state are strong and enable an environment for youth to not just survive, but thrive and gain resilience socially and economically. The Caribbean Regional Youth Council, which I'm proud to represent and bring greetings today, is one such group that wants to seek to strategically enforce youth governance and as an advocacy movement in the region. But we note in our vision statement that this can only be done through a shared vision towards working towards regional representation, integration for every person, and as well cooperation. So it's a pleasure to be here today to celebrate such a historic occasion, the first form of this kind, because this represents just this, an occasion in which we gather to work on these problems and to discuss not just those issues, but our way forward. We look forward to hearing all these recommendations and facilitate excellent conversations with our young persons in our sessions. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Shama. Before we have Ms. Atwell, I missed a youth statement from the president of UWISTAT. So let's have the president of UWISTAT and then Ms. Atwell. Is the president on the call? Let's take Ms. Atwell. Let's have the youth statement by Ms. Atwell.
Thank you very much, Dwayne. Good afternoon, everyone. All protocols have been observed. I do bring greetings on behalf of the CARICOM Youth Ambassador Corps, and of course, it brings me immense pleasure to participate in this inaugural CARICOM Youth Forum here today. Of course, as we know, the CARICOM Youth Ambassador Program is the mechanism set up by CARICOM to ensure that young persons are involved in the regional integration movement and to ensure that issues affecting young persons are brought to the attention of the CARICOM heads of government. And so this forum really addresses that responsibility that we have as CARICOM Youth Ambassadors. And of course, it is quite exciting to have been partnering with, for the past few months, the UWISTAT and the Caribbean Regional Youth Council to execute this virtual experience here today, where young persons have the opportunity to explore issues affecting young persons, examine the youth development needs in the region, and also to develop mechanisms and policy recommendations for the CARICOM heads of government. in order to address many of these pertinent issues. Now, as we know, throughout the region in various member states, we all share our unique cultures and identities. But what we do know from our observation is that the issues that have been affecting young persons are quite similar throughout the region. Things like unemployment, gender equality issues, youth involvement in criminal activity are some of the very pressing issues within the region. And these are issues that require very urgent action by the heads of government. And I'm really excited that we have this virtual space here today to facilitate meaningful discussion on how we are able to move forward for many of these issues. As we know, the CARICOM secretariats have made significant efforts to ensure that young persons are involved in decision making. And of course, we are quite exciting that the discussion that starts here today doesn't end here, but we will have the opportunity to have an audience at the upcoming Conference of Heads of Government meeting. And so we are quite excited that the Secretariat remains committed to youth development within the region. So final words, just let's take advantage of the opportunity today to discuss the issues affecting young persons and to use our innovation and creativity to develop recommendations for advancing the region forward as we aim to build back better from the COVID-19 pandemic. So thank you very much for having the CYAs here. Dwayne, back over to you.
Thank you, Rennie. Thank you. Before we go into the next item, I will give the UWISTAT another opportunity to come on board and share their statements. Are any of the presidents from the UWISTAT online and would like to share their statement? Okay, there must be experiencing some technical.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Okay, awesome.
Yes, you can hear us, right?
Yes.
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm gonna adopt the protocol already established by the moderator. UWISTAT Regional Core, which really are the Vice Chancellor's representatives at the University of the West Indies across all the 5 campuses, are really pleased to be part of this forum, because not only are young people's participation very important in improving the Caribbean, young people's participation in being able to shape policy is at the core of the work that we do. Because for us at UWISTAT, what is really important is being able to ensure that we nurture critical thinkers, that we nurture regional leaders, and do so within the consciousness of what it is to be Caribbean. And therefore, over the past few weeks and months, we've been pleased to be able to share our thoughts and our ideas into this forum to help CARICOM and as well as help the region's youth to be able to reshape what youth development looks like in a post-COVID era. And therefore, we're thankful for this opportunity, and we really hope that all the members of the youth fraternity who are present today can contribute equally. And as we know, basically, that if it is that one decides to shy away from sharing their voice, then really we have a lot of things going wrong. And therefore, young people want the space and want the opportunity to be able to speak, and therefore we must just provide them with it. I'm happy that CARICOM continues to stand in the vanguard of providing and amplifying the voices of youth, and we look forward to today's proceedings. UWISTAT has the full support of its membership, and CARICOM has our full support in relation to this. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. One of the interesting things this afternoon is that you have 2 hosts this afternoon, and both of our names are Dwayne. He was not on the call earlier, but I will allow him to introduce himself and take the second half of this forum this afternoon. Dwayne, over to you.
It feels quite weird, but thank you, Dwayne. No, I must say, good afternoon, everyone. Certainly, from what I've joined and listened to, it's been a remarkable experience. And what I want to happen at this point is those persons who are on the call, just get to the chat. Don't hit enter as yet, but just put one word that kind of sum up, your expectation of a session like this. Just one word or 2. I'll give you 2. And then when I say go, you hit go so that we can see that kind of waterfall effect with the chat. So 1 or 2 words that kind of sum up your expectation at the end of this activity. What is it that you would likely to walk away with? What are some of the expectations that you have? And I'm setting it in context because right after this, we're going to hear from the president of Suriname. So I'm going to do a countdown, and then once the countdown happens, then we have persons just drop in the chat their answer. All right. So last time, what you're required to do is just drop in the chat some expectations, leaving this, what you want to have picked up, from a forum like this. I see we have over 100 persons on, and congratulations to all who have taken time out to be here this afternoon. So on 3, 1, 2, 3. You can hit enter now, and we should see those comments coming through. I hope you don't shame me. All right, good. I'm seeing informative. I see priorities should be established. That's very good. Networking, long-term policies, excellent stuff. Ooh, radical change. These are some very excellent suggestions that we're seeing coming through. And I want us to reflect on these as young people and also as policymakers on this call, because it's super important that the things that we're doing, the things that we're saying, is meeting the needs of our current generation of youngsters. As you heard, ready to work, ready to roll, have lots of ideas, and we certainly want to get those ideas to fit as part of the solution for not just their country, but the entire region. Commitment, solution, better and more developed opportunities for youth, education, affordable education, progress, networking, empowerment. And the last one that I'm seeing in the chat is commitment. Certainly some great things that we need to be looking at as we go through an exercise like this. That's not just to tick a box. That's not just to hear a nice speech, but also to try and see how we can bring about some meaningful change. At this point, it gives me pleasure to invite on the call to give an official address the president of Suriname. I won't try to do the full first name. I'll just say Chan Santoki to bring some official greetings. And I'm seeing here where President Chan, you are the last of 9 children. Certainly, I grew up in a big family myself. So, we could talk a little bit more later about how being the last of 9 children has influenced your own trajectory and so on. So we could get into that, but I make way now for some official address and words from you. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, moderator. Good afternoon, all of you. And as this is the youth forum, please allow me to acknowledge our young people first. Young people who are attending this virtual meeting, but also the young people who are present here at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Also, we have the Minister of Labor and Youth of Suriname, the leadership of the Secretary General of CARICOM, and all the other distinguished representatives, distinguished speakers, fellow CARICOM citizens. Welcome. As President of Suriname, but also as the lead head within the quasi-cabinet of the Caribbean community, responsible for regional youth development within the community development portfolio, and currently as the incoming chair, I'm pleased to be in the presence of the future of our region. And that's you, all the young people gathered here and virtually. And today, I get to speak to and engage with a cross-section of young people from across the CARICOM member states, associate members, and beyond. U.S. youth representatives are not only the future of the Caribbean, but you are also the present a crucial, delicate, and powerful position. I commend you for taking this responsibility so seriously. I urge you to keep doing so while inspiring your peers, not just to demand a seat at the table, but also to show up at the table consistently, use your persuasion, and show your good motivation. There's energy that drives every generation of youth. The energy becomes elusive when we can no longer call ourselves youth-based on the current international age limits. When the hard truth hits home, our body also let us know that we are transitioning, or in my case, have transitioned into the next phase of life. Nevertheless, we as heads of government should always do our utmost to protect, harness, and channel this youthful vibrancy into sustainable short and long-term solutions to every challenge facing our world. Yes, you heard me correctly, every challenge. And I believe young people are a valuable and undeniable partner in every development aspect. As of July this year, I'll be representing Suriname as the chairperson of CARICOM, and I intend to use this regional leadership role to champion integrated youth development as the foundation to build anything future-driven. The future of CARICOM depends on how we, as heads of government, are willing to facilitate this current generation of young through inclusive, bold, and creative leadership. While all of this may sound logical, you might be thinking, sounds good, but how many times you have not heard such speeches? How many conferences have addressed the same issues? How many years? Yes, how many years have passed and we have not been able, and I'm sorry, okay. That is storing going on. I'm sorry, I think there was a technical problem, but I can continue. I was informed that I can continue with my address. So I repeat once again, the future of CARICOM depends on how we, as heads of government, are willing to facilitate this current generation of youth through inclusive, bold, and creative leadership. While all of this may sound logical, you might be thinking, sounds good, but how many times I've not heard such speeches? How many conferences have addressed the same issues? How many years? Yes, how many years have passed and we have not been able to tackle some of the most fundamental challenges involving young people? I hope to help change that by giving you my commitment in words and action. On behalf of my country, and please listen carefully, all the young people here and virtually, on behalf of my country, I'm willing to pledge 10 acres of Surinamese fertile land to a youth-led, modern, high-tech, climate-neutral campus where agribusiness and creative industries meet. That will serve as an incubator for research and development, a place where young people can experiment with new ideas and methodologies, a place where they can contribute to the entire value chain of agribusiness and creative industries regionally and sub-regionally. It will be the first tropical innovation campus in one of the 3 carbon negative countries in the world. And yes, we are one of them. We are young people inspired by tropical biodiversity of Surinamese flora and fauna can work on solving current global problems. Suriname invites all the CARICOM member states and associate members, all the higher educational institutes within CARICOM and youth leaders from across the Caribbean to take advantage of this opportunity to create a best practice for the rest of the world, guided by the CARICOM Youth Development Goals. A regional agribusiness and creative industries hub located in Suriname. The CARICOM Youth Development Action Plan lists all the CARICOM Youth Development Goals. And the CYDAP seeks to operationalize the Declaration of Paramaribo on the future of youth in the Caribbean community. This complements the implementation of the CSME and supports mainstream adolescent and youth well-being and empowerment. The CARICOM Youth Development Goals should function as a moral compass to guide the implementation of the evidence-based youth development policy in every CARICOM member state. The CYDGs offer 6 areas that address the aspirations of our CARICOM youth. These goals address the need of our young people for better education and good jobs while they enjoy good health and well-being. For their need to feel protected and secure and safe in this Western Hemisphere that is a peace zone. A region where they can express their culture and identity and enjoy the rights and duties of the Caribbean citizens in our countries. Countries that have created the right policy and institutional frameworks for their aspirations to thrive. And the Caribbean community that allows them to lead, participate, and co-govern to seek the fruition of their ambitions. These goals were aligned with the Millennium Development Goals, and now we need to reimagine these goals to be aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. For that reason, the topics we will be discussing today show similarities with the CYDGs, but also gravitate to the more relevant SDGs. Environment, climate change, and innovation and technology align with SDGs. And I'm convinced that at the upcoming CARICOM Youth Summit scheduled for October this year, you can further elaborate on designing the entire process of constructing the first tropical innovation campus in Suriname. So therefore, I also call and invite international investors who align with the CYDP to become angel investors in making this ultra-modern facility a reality in the next 3 years. And I call on the multilateral institutions to support this initiative. It is a coalition of willingness that will ignite this initiative. Suriname is optimistic that we'll be enable our youth to showcase their excellence by providing these 10 acres as an initial commitment and regional investment. Our youth are on the cusp of changing how we think about food security, biodiversity loss, climate change, pandemics, and many other threats to democracy, safety, and security in our region. This is your world. This is your chance to make your contribution. And in that context, taking care of our physical needs is as important as taking care of our mental health. If we want a healthy, thriving region, then tackling any mental health problems, especially youth-related, is extremely important. My wife, the First Lady of Suriname, and the team are taking the lead in that regard here at home. Even though we have relatively limited resources, the First Lady of Suriname is making a substantial contribution to the mental health of our young people. She is doing so with the support of the international institutions like the UNICEF, subject matter professionals like children's and youth psychologists, and of course, the backing of Suriname government. The Institute of the First Lady of Suriname is implementing over 5 programs and projects nationwide to promote mental health. To assist our young people and get them mentally strong and resilient so they can be self-sufficient in creating a sustainable, healthy livelihood. Suriname's First Lady looks at the possibilities and not the limitations, which is an example worth following. In that regard, I invite you to look also at the possibilities that solidarity, cooperation, inclusion, and peace in our region offer us to make a meaningful contribution to the present and the future. The benefits of which are felt and experienced by each CARICOM citizen. I look forward to welcoming your proposals and getting to work side by side, and we rise to the challenges facing all the countries in the wider Caribbean with a youthful energy that, likely for us, is replenished every generation for generations to come. In closing, I'm inviting you all to be present at the heads of conference of the CARICOM leaders from July the 2nd till July the 5th, and hopefully that we can continue with our discussion over here. And I'm inviting you to have a good report prepared for the heads, which will be presented by you young people, so that the heads can continue with the strategy that's designed by people. I thank you very much, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And certainly we can have some virtual applauses. We can use the emojis that's there as well to certainly just say thanks to President Santoki. Definitely some interesting and valuable things coming out of that presentation, Sir President. And I just want to underscore that Suriname has always been a champion and a lead as it relates to youth development in the region. And I think the model that you have for youth engagement and certainly the Youth Ambassadors program over the years have been a best practice, and certainly want to congratulate you and the team that continues to work in that regard. So a big round of applause there as well, again, for the team. Let me just zoom in quickly before we get to a couple of the questions that we have for you, Mr. President. You mentioned, and the technical difficulty, I think, for you came in at a good time, because it gave us a chance to hear twice your commitment, willingness to facilitate this young generation of leaders. So you didn't only say it once, we have you on tape twice saying it, and we can hold you to that through inclusive, bold, and creative leadership. I think those things are not just words that somebody puts on a paper, but that comes from thought. And I know you and the team that will be championing this will certainly want young persons on this call and those listening to us on YouTube and Instagram and all the other social media platforms that we have to say, down the road that yes, President Santoki certainly lived up to the words that he mentioned, not once, but twice at this summit. So certainly want to thank you for that. And then you certainly started to put, the commitment, not just in words, but in action, and 10 acres of land for this tropical innovation campus is certainly a step in the right direction. It's certainly where we want to see the region go, where you're offering these spaces and these avenues for young people to be creative, to take a chance, to look for bold and innovative initiatives that they can champion and be a part of, and have the rest of the world look to us as, you know, a leader in those regards. I really do applaud you again for those bold moves, but more importantly, the young people on this call, myself, well, I'm more in the transitioning youth that you mentioned there. So the transitioning youth and the youth will certainly be looking on to make sure that we hold you accountable to some of these things that's said here. And we'll be doing our best in terms of helping you to realize some of these things that's mentioned here. So it's not just taking a backseat, but to see how we can help to drive some of these things. So again, congratulations. Thanks so much for what you've mentioned here. And certainly, I know it's going to be a great tenure for you starting in July. First question that we have here for you is, bearing in mind some of the learning losses that has occurred within the region over the pandemic, and also the lack of attention and opportunities for integration of youth voice into national and regional decision making, how will you, as lead head for youth development across the region, ensure that young people are not left behind, that spaces are created for their voices to be heard and also acted upon, and that opportunities for them to sit at decision-making table is institutionalized? Quite a mouthful, but I know you can handle it. Over to you, President Santoki.
Thank you very much for the comments and also your thanks to me for the presentation. And as regards the question, I think that we are quite aware how many treaties, how many policy documents, and how many declarations have been approved in the world to give the young people all the need what they deserve as regards the rights, as regards the education, the health system, their livelihood, etc., etc. What we need to do is that we as leaders and we as CARICOM organizations, that we should comply with all the provisions and all the rights of the young people. That's the first thing. Otherwise, all these provisions for the young people will not have that value and will continue to do business as usual by presenting statements, but we need action. And within the CARICOM organization, all the organs and institutions which are in charge with youth policy, those institutions should be strengthened. They should function more proactively. And on the other side, the youth issue is not a standalone issue. It's a cross-cutting issue. And it has to deal with all development areas and all development sectors. So the youth should be part of the entire development strategy, and it should have a holistic approach where the youth should be included. There should be inclusiveness of the youth. Very often, we see that adults are in charge of designing, discussing about a lot of policy issues. But the policy issues are very often for the future. And those people who will be the leader in the future, they are not included at the preparatory stage in preparing those strategies. So we need the young people at a very early stage in the discussion and designing the strategy, and they will be also involved in the implementing. And there should be also an action plan coming from the heart and the mind of the young people. So that is what is important, that we need to know that all the institutions and all the leaders, including my person, because I'm responsible for the Wayside Cabinet with the portfolio youth, that we should do everything and that we should advocate the role of the youth, the involvement of the youth, the inclusiveness of the youth, and design the policy, but also in implementing the policy.
Thank you. I like how you mentioned that it is important that we understand the role of youth, and not only understand the role of youth, but to include young people in decision-making process. Now, another question is, the COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted many aspects of our lives, professionally, loss of jobs, academically, loss in learning time, and setback on achievements and personal, some experiencing mental health issues, especially dealing with anxiety and depression, primarily due to the uncertainty we are experiencing as it relates to our future, domestic violence, among many others. How will you, as lead head, advocate for our development to have other heads of governments and supporting ministers address these issues for us to thrive during this period?
Thank you for the question. I think it's very important to acknowledge what COVID had done with our societies, what COVID had done with our community, and what COVID had done with the young people. And I think up till now, it's not quite clear how much damage COVID had created to the mental health condition of the young people. Lockdowns for 2 years, yet a setback in the education system, but also the frustration and the limited of freedom and other type of communication. Yes, I think from the CARICOM perspective, we need to find all the experts and in close collaboration with the experts of the nations, that we should carry out a study and to find out what the real damage of the COVID was towards young people. And I sure believe that with that study, we can design a strategy to strengthen mental health towards our young people. On the other side, the COVID had its opportunities also. And the opportunities we have to find in the area of the digital communication, the digital business, the distance learning program, but also all the Zoom meetings and virtual meetings. Those are also opportunities, what we have learned from the COVID, but also the e-commerce, e-business, all these things that were evolving and moving during also the COVID. So we need to look also for the strengths, the opportunities were during the COVID. And one of the things was also that we are brought back to our families, that we respect again the values, that we're getting again close communication with the loved ones at home. And those are also the opportunities. Once again, the issue of COVID on the side of the impact of it towards the young people should be addressed in a very professional way. And I'm willing to address that issue during the CARICOM heads and to find also methodologies within the framework of CARICOM to see which of the institution can be asked to address this phenomenon in a very professional way in order to find out what the impact was on mental health and maybe other damage to young people.
Excellent, President Santoki. And you have two different persons asking you questions. It's quite easy because both persons named Dwayne. So the early response, it would be cool, either one. But let me just point out something that you mentioned, both in the first one and the second one, the importance of strengthening youth development and avenues to get youth voices into different solutions. It came up in the first question that you answered, and also the second question, because even as we deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and we don't know everything as yet, and as we're learning more, youth voice is in that solution and in paving the way after COVID and life after COVID is also important. We are seeing a lot of shifts, some of which you mentioned, but others is that some young persons are now used to operating remotely. How do we provide opportunities for these remote work, for these remote style learning even more? And I think it leads into the next question. As lead head, how can you promote and encourage other member states and other heads of government to have that kind of more robust mechanism to have youth engagement more pointedly, make sure that opportunities for youth are there? How can you push and promote those form of linkages?
Yes, thank you. Just to give you one comment, when we in the world, but also in our own region and also back home, we were discussing about the post-COVID situation. We were talking about going back to the new normal. And the other words which were introduced, and you can find them also in the documents, is to build back better. And that is the first question what we have to ask. Post-COVID, are we taking the actions to build it better with a lesson learned from COVID? What we have learned from COVID, and what should we utilize to build back better? And I think we as human beings, we are very often focusing on continue with business as usual. And that is not my message. My message is, let us look for all possibilities based on lesson learned, based on the challenges, to build back better community, a better strategy for the young people. And I give you some of the example, what we are doing within the Caribbean. In the last meeting in Belize, the heads of government agreed that there should be more attention for the food security, because the Ukraine war is having strong impact on the food security situation, but also the shortage of fertilizer. That will have strong impact on the food security. Guyana, which is in charge of the quasi-cabinet for agriculture, had presented by President Irwan Ali a comprehensive strategy on the agriculture, the agribusiness, and the food security, by offering also fertile land to the Caribbean community. And jointly with Guyana, Suriname had offered the same plan to the Caribbean community, to the heads, that yes, we have the Caribbean nations there. We have the 6 country over there, small island states. Here we have continental states, Guyana and Suriname, maybe also Belize, with a lot of fertile land. Are we willing, particularly given the new challenges in the area of food security, are we willing to have joint investment when Guyana and Suriname is offering fertile land for the investment in the agriculture. So those are the opportunities. On the other hand, I'm fully supporting proposals like establishing funding to support the young entrepreneurs. In my country, we do have those funded, the small, medium enterprise fund. We have also a fund for technical assistance to entrepreneurs, young people who are willing to start with their own enterprise that they need to be supported. So those kind of funds, we have to think within the framework of CARICOM that we as heads should take that decision and in close cooperation with the international community, with the World Bank, with the Caribbean Development Bank, with the Inter-American Development Bank, that we have those funding and to support our young people and exercising also their dreams of becoming a successful entrepreneur, businessman, and that those kind of funding can be very helpful. Suriname was also mandated during the last meeting and Belize with more responsibility in its quasi-cabinet, and Suriname is also responsible for the industrial policy. And the industrial policy should be designed, and hopefully the framework, the draft framework can be presented during the heads meeting over here. But the industrial policy is a wide area of a lot of possibilities in the area of industry. It can be tourism, it can be creative, it can be, you can call it. And that should be designed, and the Caribbean countries should cooperate. If we can start with the 10 products, the 10 products the Caribbean countries are producing, and if we can encourage the people, the business people, the young people to produce those products, then we should decide as leaders that we should take access of those products to our countries. And that's one of the challenges. We have the CSME, with how many difficulties we don't have. We have a lot of obstacles. And that was my introduction of the coalition of willingness. Let us start with the countries who are ready to cooperate with each other, which are the countries who are willing to start importing each other's products. And then it will start with 2 countries, 3 countries, 5 countries, and finally we'll see that all of them will be included. And I'm fully supporting the idea that we should support the young people. And finally, the other issue is, namely, that all of our young people are going to a formal education system. And very often the future of the Caribbean countries and the future of the nation is not fully served with that traditional education system, and that we need to have more a market-oriented strategy for our education system. For example, if Suriname and Guyana will be the 2 major oil and gas producers over 3, 4, 5 years, then we have to change our education system and give the young people all the opportunities, get the skills, get the training, and in order to have also the involvement in the oil and gas. And so we can call a lot of areas of industrial policy, like the agriculture, where we can train our young people based on also the need of the country, based on also the need of the region, based on also the need of the world. So those are the few ideas what I have to include the young people with a very pragmatic approach, but particularly giving the future what we have. And if you want to create, and if you want to have that future, then we need to start here with the young people, and start here with the design strategy, and start here by also changing our education system, and also the programs which should enable them to become a future leader, become a future entrepreneur. Those are some of the thoughts. Sure.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Very insightful. And if leaders of the Caribbean adopt that mindset, I'm sure we are on the perfect path to an inclusive and sustainable future. And one of the topics, around the world is around that's very hot it's the topic of climate change. So, like many other Caribbean nations, Suriname has been negatively affected by the impacts of climate change. Have Suriname or other member states engaged in bilateral or multilateral arrangements or agreements to combat these effects? And if yes, how are these working? And in your opinion, what needs to be improved for us to address the impact of climate change as a region?
The topic of climate change is a very interesting one. And we see that the effect and the impact is coming closer and closer every day to our countries, to our homes, to our livelihoods. And Suriname is, with a lot of other Caribbean countries, the small island states, are belonging to the countries with low-lying coastal area. That's a fact. So these countries will be the countries which are threatened immediately. And these countries will be the countries which will be attacked firstly with the global warming, the impact of the global warming. And we see the impact already. In Suriname now, as I'm speaking, a lot of areas are flooded in the interior, in the coastal area. And the rain is still coming. And the rain will continue. So those issues cannot be addressed only based on a nation's view. And that is why we as nations, and that is what Suriname is doing, we need to cooperate with the international community. Yes, we are communicating with the United Nations institutions which are in charge of the climate change. We are taking part in the international treaties. We are taking part in the COP meetings. The COP27 will come. But the question is, for us as small nation, what should be our strategy? What should be our strategy to get the impact of the climate change under control? And what is the world saying? The world is saying, through decision making, through treaties, that the world should take two types of actions. One is mitigation of the emission, and second one is the adaptation. So Suriname is a country which is carbon negative ranked, fortunately, and our policy will be to keep it like that, to maintain it like that, to have a sustainable forest strategy and management. But how much adaptation measures you can take as a country facing with the financial economic crisis? Adaptations measures are very expensive measures, and we should pay for that. And there is what we need within the Caribbean community, a strong commitment. And we have done that in CARICOM. We have done that during the Summit of the Americas a couple of weeks ago in LA, in the United States of America. And that is what we need to address also in the United Nations and all the other fora. A strong climate change. Yeah, we need to address that position of the Caribbean countries, and we need to address the world that we need support from the entire world to take the adaptation measures, and that the money, the finance should be made available for those countries which are directly threatened by the climate change. And there we are. The Caribbean nations are of it. So Yes, we are cooperating. We are taking our position in through the CARICOM. We are taking our position internationally and regionally. And we are cooperating also internationally to design also a strategy to design a strategy for the carbon credits. The carbon credit strategy is one which should enable a lot of countries, and sure Suriname, to increase their income. And particularly with you rating as a carbon negative country, you can get access to capital which is available. However, we are lacking the expertise. We are lacking the expertise to design that carbon strategy, carbon credit strategy. We signed the agreement with the Total Energies, which is doing the study, and we are engaged also with other experts who are willing to assist Suriname in designing that strategy. Because on one hand, we are confronted with the threats of the climate change, but on the other side, we as country with a high forests and low deforestation country, we are also a sink for the world to provide oxygen. But what we're getting back, who's paying us back for that? And those kind of issues we should address jointly with the Caribbean nations, with the countries of the Amazon Pact, because that is the force which is in charge now to save the planet. But on the other side, I think the world needs to pay us also for that, for us what we are preserving and for us what we are protecting. So those are a few, and very important for the young people is all the elderly people. They will be going after 10, 20, 30 years. The young people should address the issue of climate change because they will live in another situation. But my feeling is that the young people are not quite aware yet in what future they will live. And all the decisions are taken by administrators, by adults, and we need to take that decision, the full inclusiveness of the young people in the theme of the climate change strategy, because they will live in a new change world, and they should know what the consequence will be. And they should know also what will happen with the future if we will not act now. And they need to create pressure on government. They need to create pressure on leaders to take the action and to protect their future. And I'm calling to all the young people over here and who are listening virtually to take your responsibility. You have to fight for your future. You have to fight against the negative impact of the climate change. You have to raise your voice. Other people should take their decision based on their view. Your view is for the next generation. Be very proactive, and I hope that the Summit of the Youth will be a good opportunity to take proper steps in the area of climate change strategy. Thank you. Those were my views.
Thank you so very much, President Santoki. And we thank you so much for not just those answers to the questions, but also for the time and the commitment that you have shown throughout this exercise. I know we're on a time schedule, and I think there's just one more question that we have to throw your side before you go, and we have persons in the chat asking some questions. I think the question and what you just mentioned about young people being at the forefront of this whole climate change thing is very important. And you will have the left and right about it. I see in the chat, how can young people be a part of it when they have to look at securing jobs and so on. And I think a big part of it is an awareness and inclusion strategy that needs to happen across the region so that young people can fully understand, as you mentioned, fully embrace and rightly find different ways in which they can play a part in this. Just a final question based on what's here. How do you see young persons playing a part in this climate strategy? In very simple terms, very practical ways in which you think young persons, those on this call, those on YouTube and so on, can play in this regard?
I think the young people are the people now in a community which are very strongly focusing on technology. And that is where we have to invest. The technology should protect the future. The technology should protect the planet. And that we should, that's why I was urging that our education system should be amended. If we know that there is a serious climate threat, and that is so, yes, it is so, then we have to find all types of systems to save the planet. And one of the mechanisms I mentioned already will be the adaptation, will be the mitigation, but I think the third pillar will be the design of modern technology. And that is the strength of our young people, because our young people are dominating in the modern technology, and our universities, also the West Indies, but also the universities back home, should have a special study and a special faculty for the climate change, and also to give the young people to design all types of technology, modern technology, which should enable us to take actions to save the planet. I think that's the most important opportunity what we have for the young people.
Excellent. And again, thank you so much. I think we can release you from the hot seat, but certainly we'll be journeying with you. We'll be listening and looking on to the commitments that were made here to ensure that it augurs and benefit to the benefit of the young people across the region. So once more, on behalf of the youngsters on the call here, we want to say a big thank you for the time, the commitment, and the participation in today's forum. Thank you so much, President Santoki.
Yes, thank you very much. And once again, let us do everything to facilitate the young people. And I'm looking forward as the incoming chair towards the report which will be presented to the heads for conference meeting. And I'm looking forward also to the youth summit. And those are the two opportunities where the young people will get the opportunity to design their own policy. And we as leaders, we will listen to the young people. We have to listen to the voice of the young people. And during my chair person period, I can give you the guarantee that the young people will have the voice within the CARICOM. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, and there are some questions still coming in the chat, and what I would suggest is that you continue to put the questions or the comments in the chat, and we will certainly ensure that these questions and comments get channeled to the so that you can have the right response. So keep those questions coming, post them in the chat. If you have one that you want to articulate, please feel free to do that as well. Once again, we thank President Santoki for his kind remarks. We're going to move the program along, and I see on our program there is to be some entertainment from Sandrine Morris, saxophonist. So Sandrine, if you're on the call, now would be your time to shine. Sandrine. And then right after this, we're going to get into the breakout activities where we will be discussing a couple of the thematic areas: education and culture, identity and citizenship, environment protection and climate change, economic empowerment, health and well-being, protection of human rights and safety, and of course, you just heard the president speak to this one, innovation and technology. So that's what we have coming up in just a little while. But right now, we should be hearing from Sandrine Morris. Everything's gonna be all right.
I do agree with that, Dwayne. I do agree with that sentiment. And it feeds into our next session where our young people, and I will say our because I'm included in that bracket as a young person.
I'm in the transition part, so hey.
You're still youthful. As long as you're youthful, you are great. So how the breakout sessions are going to run is that there will be 6 breakout rooms, which will allow all our participants to discuss key matters. Now, these matters are surrounding education, culture, identity, and citizenship. 2, the environment change. 3, economic empowerment. 4, protection of human rights and safety. 5, health and well-being. 6, innovation and technology. So there will be questions posed within these breakout room sessions, and each breakout group will discuss the topics under these thematic areas of the policy revision and formulation, implementation process, ownership and accountability, and monitoring and evaluation. Now, each breakout room will have a facilitator and a co-facilitator. So, you know, there will be someone there to aid the discussion and prompt our participants to give their contributions to the relevant topics. Now, each breakout room will last for 45 minutes to discuss the related issues, and then we'll jump back in the main room to take in your summaries and key points and recommendations and suggestions forward. Now, our technical team will now assign each participant to their relevant breakout rooms. Dwayne?
Just before they go to the breakout rooms, we want to make sure that persons are really behind their computer. So we're gonna do a quick activity. 30 seconds. I'm gonna give you 30 seconds, and there are 5 items that we want persons to grab and come back to your screen with. Grab and come back to your screen with. So it means you might have to turn on your camera so that we can verify that you do have these things. And who knows, you might just win a prize. Dwayne, Michelle, we'll talk about what the prize is, but let's see what they come back with first before we get into that. So 30 seconds. And at the end of the 30 seconds, 5 things. Here are the 5 things that we want you to grab for us in this 30 seconds. A key, a pen, a bag, a bottle, and a shoe. 5 things. 30 seconds starts now. A key, pen, bag, bottle, and a shoe. And once you've found those 5 things, turn on your camera and let's see those 5 things, and let's see if we can find a quick winner here. Rogers, I see you're on, but I don't see the 5 things. I'm only seeing your beautiful face.
Hey everyone. So I actually on my way home from work, but I got my bag, I got a shoes. I can't find a I got 2.
You got 2. Sorry, 2 can't do. 2 can't do, but I'm seeing some others on the screen here.
I got all 5. Man.
Everything I have.
Oh, wow. I don't know if I can
have all
hear
5.
a winner. Dwayne, you might have to help us here.
I'm trying to see who are the winners here.
Yeah, Kieran, I have everything.
All right, Kieran, let's start with you. Let's see.
I have everything here also.
Let's verify.
I have everything here as well.
Yeah, I see key. What's a mask doing inside of it, Kieran? I didn't say mask.
No, just say sure. Key, bag,
Oh, that's
bottle,
extra. Okay.
shoes.
Shoes. All right. Interestingly, there is Imani. Is that Imani? I see a bag there. Please tell us about what you have there.
Imana? Did you mean Imana?
Imana. Yes, Imana. There we go. Yes. So
Yes.
let's start again. Yes.
This is my mom's bag, my mom's shoe, my daughter's bottle, my pen, and my key.
Quite a good mix there. Intergenerational stuff we have there. Your
Yes.
stuff, your stuff and that of your daughter. So quite intergenerational. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Dwayne, you are the one who's going to declare the winner here.
I have all of mine too, but I can't get it on my screen, man.
Can't get it on the screen. Sylvia, I see you're on, Sylvia. Sylvia, show me what you got.
Hen.
Pen, all right.
Bottle.
Lots of keys, a bottle, bag. But Sylvia, I don't see the shoes. Where's the
shoes? Right there.
That's a slipper. So sorry.
Shoe.
That's a slipper.
That is with this one.
Sorry, Sylvia. I think
it's not on my feet.
It's
not on my feet.
All right. I hope the technical team is ready. I think for this one, we will certainly say Karan and Imana.
Yes.
Those are the two persons that we will award this one to. And then technical team, Dwayne and Michelle will tell you how to claim your prize. You know what I mean? It might be.
Thank
you. Might be a virtual prize, you know. So, but we'll certainly be talking to you guys. Thank you so much for participating. Folks, if you can keep the cameras on, please feel free to do so. In the discussion room that we're going to be going in, it would be great also if when you're speaking, you could turn the camera on so that persons can see feel the vibe and the engagement. Virtual is hard as it is. And it's even harder when you're just looking at names on the screen. When you're looking at faces and so on, it makes it a little bit easier. And so for those who can keep it on, no problem. I know it's in the middle of the day. Some persons might be at work listening and so on, but feel free to turn on those cameras if you can. Technical team, it's over to you.
Michelle?
Yes, we're actually assigning persons to the room, pardon me. It takes a few minutes. In 10
because we have to start from they're young, can't wait until they're older. If we start re-socializing them to believe that, okay, this isn't a dirty job or this isn't a job that because you didn't do well in school, then you have to take up farming. But actually allow them to realize the importance, then I think that should help also. A lot of the time.
Good afternoon, guys. Sorry to interrupt, but we will have to shut down the actual groups now and bring everybody back in the main room. So you're all in the main room already. So just you can say your final words. I think there are persons who have already joined the main room already. Okay.
Michelle, 45 minutes have elapsed already.
It has.
Wow.
Join from my session.
That's
doing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All right. So Patrice, just go ahead and wrap.
Yes, so the final thing that I wanted to say is that if we look at some of the times when we need things done in the Caribbean, we have to outsource that knowledge, those technical expertise. If we look at, for example, climate change, I see that for now we start teaching people, we start offering scholarships for persons to do degrees as well as masters in some of the climate change areas. So if we look at areas like that and allow persons to start envisioning those areas as a reasonable pathway, then that should help us as a region to have the technical expertise and hold on to those expertise instead of just the regular traditional jobs. Those are my recommendations.
All right. Thank you very much, Patrice. Excellent points made. What I'm going to ask, I see Ben and Singh and John, as well as Tiago, they had their hands up and they didn't get to share. I'm just going to ask you to just type your responses in the chat.
Sorry to interrupt because of
we're
the
wrapping up now.
yeah, because we're on a time constraint, so we have to take the feedback from each group. So if everyone from the groups could just collect their thoughts, you'll be given 2 minutes to give a wrap up on each of the breakout room. And we're gonna start with breakout room number 1, which was, let me quickly see which one. The first focus area, which is education and culture, identity, and the citizenship. So if we could have just a 2-minute presentation or 2-minute wrap up about that group.
All right, no problem, Dwayne, and good afternoon again to everybody. My name is Savran McFadden. I was the co-facilitator for the Education, Culture, Identity, and Citizenship group. The truth of the matter is I find that this area is a very broad one, and 45 minutes was not necessarily enough time for us to get through everything that we'd have wanted to talk about, but a number of things were stated in this 45 minutes, including the gap that is seen between undergraduate and postgraduate education and the need for a fund in order to allow for persons to be educated at the postgraduate level, given that there's more competition and the entry level requirement for most persons are no bachelors, and persons would want to engage in master's level education. So on Freud, Ashley, she suggested having that fund be implemented. Now, I know that it was a number of persons under the Suriname account, but a number of things were stated by them as well, including the implementation of education for the indigenous societies and districts within the Caribbean and contextualizing it for them and their languages within the wider region. There was also the prospect of having facilities and the atmosphere generally of schools being accessible for persons with disabilities, teaching persons basic sign language for the acclimatization of those persons with disabilities, the improvement in vocational training, the implementation of sex education, and that is to combat the prevalence of violence against women, along with the stigmatization that men cannot be victims of domestic violence. There was this whole notion as well of teaching the youth ways in which they can plan their own youth strategies as well, so that they can implement the change firsthand. I'm trying to go through this as quick as I can, but
that's like the 45 minutes elapsed. The 2 minutes elapsed.
The 2 minutes have elapsed as well. So yeah, that's some of all of the stuff that the Education, Culture, Identity, and Citizenship group have discussed.
Thank you so much. We're going to move now to environment and climate change.
I say just so the 45 minutes and the 2 minutes has elapsed. So yeah, we had a great conversation, almost so that the time had run up so much. So essential what we've established is, as we know, that climate change is an existential threat to especially Small Island developing states. What we want to emphasize, especially the conversation a lot, centered just around following up on the President of Suriname's comments around youth involvement and how it is that we all can become part of this fight and what we recommend. And one of the key things we heard coming out is that taking just away from the top level, there's much that each of us as individuals can do. So we want to take these conversations just from our local environments, our schools, our communities, and even in our households. So in terms of just not just even our own climate change, but as the environment, how it is that each of us are engaging in sustainable lifestyle practices. And therefore we take it away from just something you hear about on TV or on the radio, Prime Minister speaking about, but something that we've all tuned in on as something that we want to get a part of, in terms of we know doing this because I know this is the right thing and I want to do this because. The conversation therefore went to, we need to start this from even an educational programs, even within our schools, and engage them at every single level. Someone made a comment that I had to write the quote before my 2 minutes finished, was, we've been teaching persons geography, but we don't even just tell them the impact. We don't, as they said, we teach geography, but not the impact. And so therefore, even right after that, we want to also encourage and to show persons how it is that they can start to get involved in these sustainable life practices, and how it is that this starts having an impact towards starting to do more projects, starting to actually go out there and effective those changes in adaptation as much as they can. So our conversation in our breakout room is centered around getting climate change to be a worldwide feeling to every single person, how it is that we can start that one by one, especially in this time. Is that 2 minutes on the dot?
You hit them the nail on the 2 minute.
All right, perfect.
Okay, perfect. So then we're gonna have the next summary from the next breakout group, and that is economic empowerment. Could we have someone from that group give the summary on that? Okay, while we wait for that group,
we should have someone from.
Is that person on this call from that group, economic empowerment? While we wait, let's dive into protection of human rights and safety.
Okay, so hi guys. So we, in protection and safety, we did accept that throughout the region, what we are seeing is that there is a surge in terms of youth involvement in criminal activity, and therefore it requires responses from the public sector, private sector, and of course, action from the heads of government. So we started off by discussing that the intervention to youth involvement in crime doesn't only resonate with the ministry responsible for national security, but there are a number of ministries involved in terms of requiring that action to assist in this area. So the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Youth Development, Ministry of Social Development, just to name a few, they are responsible for working together to deal with this issue. We spoke about recommendations such as creating safe spaces for youth who may be going through different things at home that may be, of course, encouraging them or pushing them into a life of crime. Because as we know, everybody who's involved in crime does not want to commit crime voluntarily. There are numerous reasons for persons becoming involved in crime, whether it's mental health, lack of jobs, etc., as the case might be. So creating safe spaces for youth would be one of the recommendations that we did put forward. We looked at developing an appropriate juvenile justice system, and we referenced a recent intervention in St. Kitts and Nevis with their Untitled Vision Center. So we need more centers like this that are aimed at young persons and rehabilitating them to return into society. We spoke about public education. It's being extremely important for governments to ensure that persons are educated on crime, reasons for involvement in crime, so that it will assist persons in being able to reintegrate into society. We spoke about youth involvement at the regional level. So in terms of there being councils where the commissioners and different persons involved in security are concerned, young persons need to have a seat at the table to have their voices be heard in terms of what collective approach could be taken to youth involvement in crime. We spoke about alternative forms of sentencing last point, and that, we need to move away from custodial sentencing for young persons involved in crime to having a bit more flexible approach where young persons could be, have different things at their disposal, whether it's a fine, whether it's community service, etc., so that we are able to reintegrate youth offenders to be functioning well into society when they return, if they have been in custody. Thank you very much for that. We have a long list more, but we know the time is short and we are trying to stick with the 2 minutes. So thank you very much.
Could we have someone from economic empowerment? Okay, that person is still not there. While we await them, let's dive into health and well-being. Could we get someone from the Breakout group, health and well-being?
Everybody can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So very quickly, for the 2 minutes, health and well-being, we said that there are 3 or 4 broad thematic areas we must tackle. We said the NCD crisis. We said sexual reproductive rights and health. We said drug abuse, and we also said mental health. We really said that within the education system and really health centers, and within all the places young people interact, there should be training of of people who are interacting with young people on mental health and on health generally, so as to ensure that they could cater their own circumstances and their own offerings and their own dealings with young people in a very systemized and very scientific way. We also made the point that we need to be able to focus a bit more on the inclusion of sports, not only for recreation, but as a healthy lifestyle tool, and that there needs to be more integration of community and schools in sports, but even more so a proper timetabling of sports and urban planning for sports within the context of sports development, or rather sports for development. When we focused on teenage pregnancy and all these things, we said that we need to be able as a region to remove the stigma that is attached to young people or teenagers when they get pregnant, but rather start to create a system in which they are fully integrated and immersed in school continuously during that process. And therefore, some of these things are what we've been able to discuss. But equally, we said in relation to the non-communicable disease crisis that young people need to be made aware of it from as early, and that because of our own inherent nature, that we need to be able to reduce the sugar, we need to be able to reduce the salt, because for us, not all food is good food. So we've been able to at least categorize it under these 3-4 thematic areas, but also we said that the economic circumstances of young people dictate and cause them to commit crime, among other things. And therefore, once we start to repudiate, and I guess that goes into economic empowerment, once we start to repudiate and seek to quell some of these disparities in the economic circumstances, then we'd see much better results. That's really at least us in a very summary format.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to call for economic empowerment. Is the person there for economic empowerment? The representative from that Breakout group?
I am not sure the person is here, but just to give a very quick overview in terms of that discussion. I guess the discussion focused on the different streams of economic empowerment, the value of economic empowerment for young persons, the reasons why young persons are not being economically empowered, and what steps can be taken. One measure was looking at entrepreneurship as a means to economic empowerment, but calling a policy decision would be that any entrepreneurship program that is developed must have a funding or grant component to that program. And we have had lots of programs that focus on training and development, and at the end of it, nothing. So if they're going forward, if there are programs, there should be a grant component. And secondly, the recognition or looking at the added value of domestic work and contribution of domestic workers, especially women and young people, to society, and putting creating an environment whereby not only can they contribute, but facilities are made for them. For instance, if they need to go to the bank to get a loan, etc., that they'll be recognized as legit work. And thirdly, looking at the whole notion of creating a financial literate cohort of young persons, where financial literacy is taught at different levels, and not just in terms of the academic level, but also to give young persons the option to understand finance, credit, technology, fintech, etc., the different aspects of finance when it comes to economic development of young persons.
Thank you, thank you. Now we'll jump right into innovation and technology. Could we have a representative for innovation and technology? If not, the co-facilitator, could the facilitator share on that?
Oh, also, who is sharing their screen currently? I think someone is sharing their screen currently. Is that, I think it's the President of the Republic of Suriname. I think they're sharing their screen. Is it possible if their screen could be stopped sharing, please? It can continue, of course, but yeah.
So the representative for the Innovation and Technology Group, Breakout Session. Is Dwayne on this call? My co-moderator?
I think we may have lost Siobhan. Sorry, I think a lot of people got lost coming back in from the rooms. For the innovation and technology group, we did discuss some of the things which were mentioned by President Santoki. I won't go back over them. We also discussed the possibility, sorry, I'm trying to find my note. I was looking to see if Siobhan was there. The opportunities provided by we discussed very, very tangentially 4 possible areas which we could look at as innovation and technology. Those were looking at the establishment of mechanisms and institutions for governing and driving innovation and technology, human collective action for science and technology, what we could do to get that collective action going in the region. The third one was human resource development, and the fourth, entrepreneurship. We did try to look at the questions which were provided, and in that way, some of the mechanisms needed to address the issues were youth-led public campaigns, and these campaigns could be social media, radio, and TV, taking into account and being cognizant of the fact that not everybody is connected to the internet or connected in a cost-effective manner. We also talked about some of the issues that President Santoki raised about providing learning and education using the technologies and even some of the tools that we're using today, such as Teams and Zoom, to provide to support the mechanism base for driving youth-led innovation. With regard to some policy recommendations, we looked at and discussed partnering with companies, both private and public companies, for helping us to fund what we needed to do, but also to drive the innovation and technology engine which was needed in the region. Looked at things like establishing perhaps countrywide and region-wide teleworking policies, looking at some possibilities for how funding for youth-led innovation could be better managed. One
possibly setting up an institution which could deal with that on a day-to-day basis, but more importantly, looking at issues such as publicly available databases which would match youth innovators with possible funding opportunities. And under the issue related to what would we take to heads, we talked about assuring financial support for the innovation needs of the young people, looking at cybersecurity. Sorry, you not hearing me? 2 minutes are gone?
Yes, yeah, 2 minutes, yeah, the 2 minutes has elapsed. So I'm sorry to.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, to all the participants, you meant earlier this afternoon, we talked about the seed. We are the seeds, and we are being sown in terms of reaping a bright future. In order to do that, we have to be included in the current decision-making processes. So in your opinion, and if you're on YouTube or on Facebook, you are free to post your comments and share your comments as well. But for those here, you could indicate by raising your hand or type your answer in the chat, whereby you're answering what's your view in terms of youth leadership and the participation in the decision-making processes in the region. So if you could just show your hand or type your comment in the chat, then we could go. I see here we have Shurash Singh. You're free to make your comment.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
First of all, let me say I wish to bring greetings on behalf of the government of Guyana, from His Excellency, the President of the Cooperative Republic, Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali, and my subject minister, the Honorable Charles Ramson Jr., responsibility for youth, sport, and culture. So as it relates to youth leadership and inclusion, firstly, at the highest level of our country's decision making, we have a lot of youth leadership, in the sense at the cabinet level, we want to analyze the ministers who are in cabinet for my government. A lot of young ministers are there. Obviously, they are in the system. They came through the system, they have a lot of experience. So apart from the Ministry of Culture and Sport, many ministers, they understand the importance of youth development. They understand the needs. They can relate to an issue whenever they are approached, and so forth. So that is on that part of at the national level. Now, in terms of youth in general being involved in our decision-making process, which is continuous for us because we continuously model our programs and our activities and so forth to suit the country's need. Our government has embarked since last year on outreaches constantly in communities and in catchments across the country. And during these outreaches, they are public. Various ministers of cabinet attendees, the president also go, the vice president, the prime minister, and there and then for the public, the world to see, because it is being aired live. Anyone can ask any question at any time, and they will respond positively always, because the government of the day has seen the need, saw the need rather, for having these public engagements. And because of these engagements last year, this year's budget, especially craft to a great extent towards youth empowerment and youth development.
Sorry to interrupt, but because we're on a time constraint, we do appreciate your contribution. We do appreciate your point. But because we're on a time constraint, I'll have to ask you to end your point here, because we're on a time constraint, and we would love for another participant to either post their view in the chat, or by indicate by show of hand. So since let me briefly check the chat. Since there are no more contribution at this point, I will now invite Michelle Smalls Bartley to give the vote of thanks. Oh, sorry. Before Michelle, I was asked to repeat the question. Basically, Meredith, to share your thoughts and your view and your opinion on youth in leadership and being included in the decision-making process. So that was the question. You could feel free to share your comment in the chat as well, while Michelle give her final wrap-ups. Michelle?
Thank you very much, Dwayne. Let me invite with me Ferranto, who will be giving this vote of thanks with me. Hi, Ferranto.
Michelle, hello everybody.
Today we sat back and we listened, and we were able to hear quite a number of suggestions, which we are extremely grateful. Of course, I have to tell you guys that in the background there is a lot of things that was happening. Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. The noise stopped. There was a huge feedback going on. Okay. Yes. So continue.
I was actually reporting that there was a huge technical difficulties that we were experiencing today. However, we were able to reach to the end of the road, and we are extremely grateful. Ferranto, what would you say about this this forum? We're not hearing you. You're muted.
Hey Michelle, you're not hearing me at all?
We're hearing you now. Yes.
All right. You know when technology works, it's wonderful, but when it doesn't, yeah. Je moet gewoon die speaker daar uitzetten. All right. I hope you guys are hearing me now.
Yes, we are.
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'm very sorry about that little technical hiccup. But as I was saying, when technology works, it's wonderful. And because technology worked 90% of the time today, we were able to have this CARICOM Youth Forum. Imagine 30 years ago, even be in our dreams. So we're actually thankful for all the technological advances that we have made since, and therefore participation of young people in the region is a bit more inclusive, and it's easier for young people to be able to participate and feel as if they are part of what is going on and part of what make the difference in their daily lives. So thank you to all the young people that have made their time available to join today's proceedings. But Michelle, we actually definitely also need to thank all of the young people who made sure that in terms of planning and coordination, we are here, right?
Yes, we definitely have to do that, because we had a team of planners, I will call them, that they're really putting hours into the planning of this and the whole organization of this forum. And I won't list them name by name, but they were all in the rooms today guiding the discussion and presenting facts that were researched. And we are very grateful for that planning team. Of course, it consisted of representatives from Suriname. It consisted of UWISTAT, the CRIC, and our own Youth Ambassador Corps. So, guys, we are extremely grateful for your contribution. And let me extend to Suriname for the privilege that we had today, for the support that we received from your office and from the President himself. We're extremely grateful to the Deputy Secretary General who was here with us this afternoon, the Assistant Secretary General, and Mrs. Roya, the Director of Human Development, our own Program Manager of Culture and the Community, Dr. Hilary Brown. She gave an extensive and comprehensive report on the whole history of the Cdap framework, of which I'm sure a lot of us sat and we listened and our eyes were opened when we heard of the path that it traveled and where we are today. We are grateful for those who participated with today from our partners, and most of all for the youth who participated in the discussion. We are extremely grateful for your recommendations and the fact that you were able to come out today and to share your voices. Pronto?
Yes, definitely. All the persons that you just mentioned were instrumental in making today happen, and we must not forget the historical significance of today and also the significance of today's proceedings in terms of the future for our region, because everything that was discussed today will be taken to the heads of government via a statement from the Dean of the CARICOM Youth Ambassador Program, and she will have a featured spot on the agenda of the CARICOM Heads of Government meeting that will take place here next week in Suriname, and she will be representing the voice of the entire region when it comes to youth, young people, and the things that I'm not that young anymore. Every now and again, I feel that I still want to be a part of that. But as the president of Suriname indicated, I'm also transitioning into the more mature, seasoned version of young people. We cannot forget, Michelle, our moderators. So I would definitely want to give a shout out and a huge round of virtual applause to both Dwaynes. Thank you so much for making today's proceedings fun, interactive, but at the same time, you kept the serious note during today's deliberations. And I feel that you guys had a really nice balance in keeping it light, but at the same time, making sure that we don't fool around or play around when it comes to young people, their future in our region. Michelle?
And of course, not to forget to thank our facilitators. And I have to mention that some of them were actually called upon like today because there were persons who had indicated that they would have done this session for us, but because of emergencies, they weren't able to. So I want to give special thanks today to the facilitators and also to our technical team. Of course, I could not ignore that at all. The technical team from Suriname and also from here in Ghana, they did a wonderful job. I have to embark on the few words that the president said today, that youth development is not a standalone issue, but it is inclusive. And we need to remember that. Let us mark today as the beginning of a new beginning. I express my greatest appreciation to you and the support that you have given us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. We also, of course, because she's not going to thank herself, but we have to thank her and all the support from the CARICOM secretary that she has gotten. We need a virtual round of applause for our Deputy Program Manager Youth at the CARICOM Secretariat, the one and only Miss Michelle Small-Bartley. Thank you so much for your commitment, your contribution, and to making sure that all parties involved, all relevant stakeholders were not only committed, but also in terms of their consistent action, you made sure that everybody was on the ball constantly. So thank you so much as well, Michelle, for your excellent contribution to making this a reality today.
Thank you too, Toronto. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone. And a wonderful.
Thank you. Back to the moderator, I guess, for the official closing.
Like I said today we dubbed this Friday as our CARICOM Youth Forum, and we discussed a host of topics, and I'm sure a lot of points were highlighted, suggestions were received, and they will be moved forward. Once again, thank you for taking the time out this afternoon to just vibes with us on critical issues surrounding young people. Once again, thank you, and do have a fantastic, safe, and enjoyable weekend.